Hello and welcome. We would like to welcome you all to another webinar from IndiaBiostreams. And this is our 10th webinar from IndiaBiostreams and also the first ever webinar on international funding. So today we will begin by talking about international research training and mobility grant awareness from EMBO. So we have for this joining us Dr. Bettina, Dr. Gerlind, and Dr. David. And moderating this session, we have Dr. Shantala Haridas. She's the Associate Director, India Bioscience. She'll be moderating the session and introducing the speakers as we go along. We also have a message from Dr. Shahid Jameel, the CEO of Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance. So welcome to all the speakers. We will get started with the webinar, but before we get started with the content, we would like to launch an audience poll to get to know you a little better. So any moment you'll see an audience poll launched on your screen. So please take 30 seconds or so to tell us what you do and some questions here about your interest levels on the EMBO Fellowship itself. So we'll give it about 30 seconds or so for the audiences to respond. So I'm going to quickly share the results of the poll. It looks like most of you, 30% of you, are from academic research, not many from the industry. We have 1% educators. We have students across the spectrum, a lot of PhD students, welcome, 34%, you top the list, and master students, 10%, and 3% undergrads. And also we have a junior research fellow join us, welcome. And I also see responses to some of the questions for barriers to applying. The question we asked you was, I'm doubtful about successfully being awarded an EMBO Fellowship because 41% of you say you don't have enough publications. 5% of you say your written English is not good. 13% of you say your research ideas are not good enough. 23% say no one from my institute has gotten an EMBO Fellowship. And 19% of you actually disagree and quite confident that your chances are good. Okay, so the question that we asked you next is, dash would help me the most to draft a successful application. 23% of you say your mentors. 33% of you say discussion of a successful application, so followed by example. 16% of you say grant writing workshops, and 28% of you say interacting with someone from EMBO. So that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Before we get that, Shantala would be moderating the session. So over to you, Shantala.
Thank you, Lakshmi. And it's heartening to see that a lot of the aspects that you feel you would need to craft a successful application are things that we are thinking of working on to create this resource of awareness. So before we hear from our panel of experts at EMBO, we wanted to share with you a bit about the genesis of this information webinar, which is actually a part of a bigger awareness program. So we start by hearing from our partners at this webinar, Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance. And here Shahid Jameel has shared a video where he's going to tell us a bit about why certain awareness program about international funding opportunities and grants is the need of the hour. Next slide, please.
Hello and welcome to this webinar. I'm very pleased to be here and to tell you about the EMBO programs. My name is Shahid Jameel and I am the CEO of the Wellcome Trust DBT India Alliance. At India Alliance, we have done some analysis of India's contributions to EMBO and how India is benefiting from EMBO programs. This partnership started in November 2015 when India became an associate member of EMBO, and all EMBO programs became available to Indian researchers. The EMBO long-term fellowships are 2-year postdoctoral fellowships, and our analysis shows that not enough applications are being submitted from India, and those that are being submitted are of low quality. So there is a need to increase the quality as well as to increase the number of applications going from India. The short-term fellowships are designed to enable research exchanges for up to 3 months. Here, Indians have received 5% of the fellowships awarded so far across the EMBO countries at a success rate of about 40%, when the average success rate for these applications is above 50%. So again, I would say that there is both a need to increase the quality as well as the quantity of these applications. EMBO also runs a young investigator program, and over the past few years, Indians have been awarded at least one fellowship every year for the last 3 or 4 years. Here again, the rate is not very good. We have had a success rate of only about 3%, when the average success rate is about 12%. So again, there is a need to increase the quality and the quantity of applications from India. This year, EMBO introduced a new program, which is called the Global Young Investigators Program. And the difference between this program and the Young Investigator Program is that in the global program, first of all, it is restricted to only 4 countries, India being one of them. And secondly, one has to apply within 6 years of starting their lab, whereas the Young Investigator Program, one had to apply within 4 years of starting a lab. And I'm very pleased to see that this year, the Global Investigator Program, Young Investigator Program, which has been announced, has 3 Indians in it out of the 9 awards that were given. So good success rate. And it is here, I must say, that many Indian researchers should be applying with good quality applications, and they would have a good chance of getting these. I hope you will learn from this webinar, and if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact either us at India Alliance or India Bioscience or EMBO directly. We would be very keen to help you. We'd be very happy to help you and help you avail the programs that EMBO runs. Thank you very much for listening to this. Good luck and goodbye. Hello and welcome to this webinar.
Thank you, Shahid. As you can see, that video very clearly lays the framework for why such an awareness program is critically needed at this point. So I am right now going to tell you a bit about the International Research Training and Mobility Grants Awareness Session. So this is a previous slide, please. So this is a program that we are running currently in collaboration with India Alliance, and we are very thrilled to say that this webinar is actually the first resource that we have generated as part of this larger awareness program, which is why we're going to spend a few minutes telling you about this program. And the aim of this program is actually multifold. So through this awareness program, we are hoping to do a few things. Firstly, we are hoping to educate aspiring and eligible applicants on what are all the international funding opportunities that are open to them. And secondly, we are hoping to provide aspiring applicants with the tools and the knowledge required to draft a successful application. And finally, at the community level, we are hoping to increase the confidence of the community to submit more applications to these international platforms. And we're going to do this by shining a light on success stories from India. So now, as you can see, this is a pretty big undertaking. And so for every scheme, information is going to be provided from multiple perspectives in order to create a comprehensive picture for applicants. So what this means is that you will hear from funding agencies, as in today's webinar. You will hear from people who have been part of review and evaluation committees, and this would give applicants a kind of insight into what would make their application successful. As I said before, you will hear from Indians who have previously been successful in attaining this award. And these Indians will go on to form a network of mentors whom you might then contact when you are writing your own proposals and when you're in the process of applying for various fellowships. And all of this information will be shared, of course, with aspiring applicants, but also with the grant management offices in various institutions, so that even if you have missed on a resource, if you are interested in applying for a fellowship, your institution has the knowledge of how to help you navigate to a successful application. And so now this information, we're going to host it and kind of disseminate it through many different ways. One is a webinar, as in today. We're also going to have podcasts, either with people who have got the grant before, or with people from funding agencies, or people from the review committees. We'll have informational articles which cover, like in a nutshell, will cover all the information relevant for applying for an application, such as deadlines, eligibility, eligibility factors, themes that scheme is looking for, etc. And finally, we are also going to be conducting skill building workshops. So here you can in person interact with the different stakeholders that I mentioned previously and build your skills towards crafting a successful application. Now, this is a lot of information for every scheme. So what we're going to do is eventually down the line, we're going to create an infographic per scheme. And this infographic will contain the links to each of these relevant resources. So you'll have everything available in one place. And this infographic will be publicized and circulated closer towards the application deadlines. So we do hope that you will keep your eye open for announcements from India Bioscience and India Alliance on the future resources that we're going to be generating as part of this project. And we hope that you do participate in such future awareness sessions. Next slide, please. So we are very, very excited to have a series of presentations by experts from EMBO today. And they're going to be covering a range of topics, starting with what is EMBO's relationship with India, and then moving on to providing an overview of all the EMBO schemes that Indian life science researchers are eligible to apply for. And now here, some of these schemes will be discussed in detail in today's webinar, and some of them will be covered in subsequent webinars. So do keep your eyes out, keep your eyes open for future announcements. And finally, we'll come to a detailed discussion of EMBO Fellowships, which is the central theme of today's webinar. So we hope that you will find this useful and informative. Next slide, please. So we're going to start by hearing from Dr. Bettina Trueb, who takes care of global activities at EMBO, and she's going to be telling us a bit about EMBO's relationship with India and what are all the various activities that EMBO is conducting in India currently. So over to you, Bettina.
Thank you very much, Shantala. And first of all, I want to start off with a big thanks to our partners at India Bioscience and India Alliance for inviting us along to this webinar and making it possible. We're absolutely thrilled to be with you guys today. So first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about EMBO as such. Please click. Yes. So EMBO is the European Life Science Organization, so to say. We've got more than 1,800 life scientists who have been elected members in Europe and beyond. Click, please. What EMBO mostly does is it provides funds for training of scientists at all different career stages. So ranging from postdocs to advanced scientists. We also carry out policy analysis, which we provide to policymakers, especially in Europe, and also to science administrators and scientists themselves on topics that are relevant to science policy in the life sciences. Next, please. And finally, we also pioneer publishing policies through our 5 scientific journals, and you'll hear a little bit more about that later on as well. Next slide, please. So at the moment, as I said before, we've got a big number of EMBO members across the globe, and actually 3 of them are in India. They're KVJ Raghavan from Bangalore, Jitu Mayor also from Bangalore, and LS Shashidara from Pune. And we've got a lot more EMBO members of Indian origin as well, including, for example, Venki Ramakrishnan, who's based in Cambridge but is of Indian origin and was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2009. So we're very proud of him as an EMBO member. Next slide, please. With our global activities, what we try to do is honor our statutes Article 2, which says that it's the purpose of EMBO to promote and encourage the development of molecular biology within Europe, but also beyond. We're fully aware that science is by definition an international endeavor. So we engage with partners around the world, and in particular with our associate member states, India and Singapore, and our partner countries and territories, where we collaborate with CONICIT in Chile and the Ministry of Science and Technology of Taiwan. Next slide, please. So as Shahid already mentioned in his initial presentation, India has been associate member state of EMBO since 2016. We've carried out a lot of selected activities with India already. So in the past, we've done India EMBO Symposia together with the DBT Welcome India Alliance. We've now converted these into India EMBO lecture courses, and my colleague Gerlind will tell you a little bit more about those in a minute. We regularly run EMBO research leadership courses, also together with the DBT Welcome Trust India Alliance. And we're now starting to run a series of EMBO lecture series in cities all across India to bring European science closer to India, to stimulate interactions and to increase the impact of our activities with India. And that's it from me for now. So over to my colleague Gerlind, who will tell you a little bit more about EMBO programs and how they relate to India. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Hello. Again, thank you to India Bioscience for hosting us here in the webinar. My name is Gerlind Wallon. I'm the Deputy Director of EMBO. And I would just shortly like to summarize some of our programs that are of relevance to scientists in India. And could you show me the next slide, please? Okay, one of our core programs are, and the main topic of this webinar are the EMBO Fellowships, which is going to be discussed in detail with you by my colleague David del Alamo. So I would just like to quickly summarize the EMBO courses and workshops and the EMBO Young Investigator Network. Next slide, please. So EMBO courses and workshops provide fundings to scientists to organize meetings in the life sciences worldwide, 6 of which take place in India in 2020. These meetings come in basically 2 flavors. They are the practical courses, which provide hands-on training to mostly PhDs and postdocs on the latest technological developments in the life sciences. And then there are the workshops, which is the normal scientific meeting conference, which range from 80 to over 400 participants. Besides these 2 basic flavors, there are 2 additional types of meetings available in India, which we fund together with the India Alliance. They are the India EMBO Symposia, of which the last 3 will be taking place this year. And we are replacing this with the India EMBO lecture courses from 2020 and 21 onwards. These are aimed specifically at training PhD students and postdocs. You should also note that there are travel grants available specifically also for scientists from India to any of our meetings, so you might want to consider to attend also a meeting in Europe and request travel grants for that. Could I have the next slide, please? The other activity I'd like to talk about is the EMBO Young Investigator Network, which consists of 3 groupings of highly selected group leaders from Europe, Chile, India, Singapore, and Taiwan. And in this context of relevance are the EMBO Young Investigator Program and the EMBO Global Investigator Network. The EMBO Young Investigator Program has been launched in 2000 as the first program to cater to the specific needs of starting group leaders. In the course of the years, EMBO has developed a slew of networking activities that have been proven to be very beneficial to the young starting scientists. These benefits include an annual meeting, special special meetings with specific scientific focus, a PhD course for the students of the program members, lab leadership courses, which have at that time specifically been developed for the young investigators and that are also now available in India, as Bettina has told you before. And of course, there's lots of support for the interaction between the young scientists. If you could show me the next slide, please. Here are the first 4 young investigators from India. So they are Minhaj, Arhun, Vaishnavi, and Siddharth, who are part of the Young Investigator Network. That means they have been applying to extremely competitive program with a success rate of only 12%. And the eligibility of these for the young investigators include that scientists, young group leaders have to have their lab at a maximum of 4 years at the time of application, and they already have to have a last author paper published from their independent lab. If you qualify and are interested in joining that network, you can apply by 1st of April. Next slide, please. The Global Investigator Network was launched in 2019 to cater better to the specific circumstances in some of our associate member states. For example, the time of eligibility for having your own independent lab has been extended to 6 years. And the goal of the program is to set up a network of scientists in our associate countries and connect those with the EMBO Young Investigators. So again, if you are more interested to hear more about this, the next webinar on EMBO programs will specifically deal with this program. Next slide, please. So the first 3 global investigators from India are Santosh, Dimple, and Jyoti. And application deadline is by 1st of June. Next slide, please. So I'd just like to say a few words about our journals. You're certainly familiar with the EMBO journals, and I'm sure you have heard about many of the others as well. So as an academic society, EMBO is particularly engaged in pioneering publishing policies that serve the scientific community and to make the process more transparent. For example, each of our journals, when the paper is published together with the peer review, with the reviewer comments and the correspondence with the editor to make the process more transparent. Another thing is that we have established what we call scooping protection, which means as soon as you submit your manuscript to one of our journals, you are protected from, if the similar research results are published in another journal, and we will still consider to publish your paper. Next slide, please. In our latest effort in trying to make publishing process better is review comments. So in this provides a platform where you can actually get your manuscript peer reviewed before you decide to submit to a particular journal. So you can see the logos of many other publishers there. So the editors and journalists, for these publishers have agreed to accept the reviews that you receive that you get from review comments. So the idea here, of course, is that we want to reduce the number of times a paper goes through review. So this will save you time as an author because you get your paper reviewed once, and that saves you time as a reviewer because you don't have fewer papers will have to be reviewed via this. Okay, so I hope you will consider sending some of your manuscripts to EMBO Publications. Okay, now I'd like to hand over back to Shantala.
Thank you, Bettina and Gerlind, for your presentations. As you can see, there is a wide variety of programs that EMBO has that are open to Indian life science researchers. So I hope that some of you will look into this in detail and find a way with which you can engage with EMBO. So before we move on to David's presentation on EMBO Fellowships, EMBO has shared a short video which we will be playing now. In this video, you will hear from an EMBO Fellow who tells you a little bit about what getting the EMBO Fellowship meant for his scientific career. So over to the video now.
So I'm Matteo Allegretti. I am a postdoc in Martin Beck Lab in EMBO Heidelberg. I'm originally from Italy, and now I'm doing my postdoc with studying the structure of macromolecules with cryo-EM. So the fellowship allowed me to do very high quality research abroad and naturally opened me the doors to a lot of courses and conferences that facilitated my career development plan. I'm very happy because it's a very prestigious fellowship, and naturally allows me to have a very big network in all Europe, so that's very important for my career. Without the EMBO, I mean, having the EMBO Fellowship is very important for the prestige of gaining it. It's very important for me to practice to write grants, getting money from myself independently, and to meet people in courses and conferences, learn from workshops how to learn new things, learn new pathways and new methods. And the whole EMBO Fellowship also allow me to participate to courses like leadership courses, grant writing courses, communication courses, and this is very important for my future in academia. My future, I hope to stay in academia and to go on for a group leader position and to continue studying macromolecules inside the cells, how the cells react to stress, because human health is often dependent on stress. So if we can characterize how macromolecules react to stress, is very important for human health in general.
So having heard from an EMBO Fellow on what it means to get this EMBO Fellowship, we're now going to move on to a presentation from Dr. David del Alamo, who's the head of the EMBO Fellowship program, and he's going to give you a detailed discussion of EMBO Fellowships and give you some tips and tricks as to how to create a successful application. So we now hand it over to David.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shantala, for a nice introduction and for inviting me to give this short presentation on fellowships. Today, I want to introduce you our main, most important and most popular fellowships. The first part of the talk will be an introduction on the eligibility rules and the benefits that you will get from postdoctoral fellowships or short-term fellowships. The last part of the talk will be devoted to give you some tips on how to write a successful application. So next slide, please. So talking about postdoctoral fellowships, basically, as an Indian citizen, you can apply for this fellowship to work in EMBC member states or associate member states. We will go back to that later. What they provide is financial support for 2 years, and they allow you to participate in EMBO leadership and training and fellows meetings, which will allow you in the long run to become part of a network of really outstanding researchers. Next slide, please. So the benefits, if you get this fellowship, are different in member states and associate member states. In member states, which is basically European countries, what you will get is an employment contract for up to 2 years. You will get a childcare allowance for kids below the age of 6. This is basically reimbursement money for expenses related to childcare, such as kindergarten. You get a travel allowance, which is a relocation allowance because these fellowships are international, so you have to move to another country. You get to participate in EMBO Fellows meetings and in EMBO Lab leadership courses. In associate member states, the benefits changed a little bit. These states, as an Indian, you can apply to go to Chile, Singapore, Taiwan, and associate member states. In those countries, what you get is a stipend instead of a contract for up to 2 years. And as the stipend doesn't guarantee you the same sort of rights as an employment contract, we complement that with additional benefits. Those are family allowance for dependents under the age of 18. You also get paid parental leave, and you can opt for part-time work after childbirth. That's in addition to the other benefits that you would also get in a member state. Next slide, please. So if you want to apply, you have to keep in mind that there's no application deadlines. All the eligibility requirements refer to the day that you decide to apply, but we still have evaluation cutoffs. That's because these applications are evaluated in batch. So all the applications for a specific call are evaluated together. So basically what we do is all the applications received before mid-February enter the spring call, and the ones received before mid-August enter the autumn call. So we have 2 calls per year. Decisions are made in June and December, respectively. Next slide, please. So international mobility is mandatory, as in most EMBO programs. There's no age limit to apply for this fellowship, but you have to be within 2 years after your PhD in order to apply. And remember, this doesn't refer to the evaluation cutoff. It refers to the day you apply, you submit your application. If you're already at the destination lab, you have to be there for less than 6 months. And you need at least 1 paper in an international peer-reviewed journal. This is the main requirements. There are more details about this. You should read the guidelines in order to get all the details for application. Of course, it's not allowed to go back to the country of where you did your PhD or to work with your supervisor, regardless of where the country they are now. This limits the limits of 6 months or less than 3 years after PhD can be extended in case you can demonstrate that you had a career break during that time, like parental leave or mandatory military service, or you were in the hospital, for example, or you couldn't work. Next slide, please. So once you have applied, the evaluation is based basically on 3 aspects, and only these 3 aspects. There's no political aspects or any other things we take into consideration. So we will measure basically the scientific quality of the applicant, the project, and the host laboratory. So for the applicant, we will look at the scientific achievements, the publication record. For the project, the committee that is going to evaluate the fellowships will look at the novelty of the creativity, even the interdisciplinarity of the project and how much it deviates from your previous work. For the host lab, naturally, the host lab has to be adequate for the project you want to develop. They have to have the expertise and the needs to do the project. And of course, the expertise and scientific achievements of that laboratory. So the selection process goes in 3 steps. The first step is a pre-selection where 1/3 of the applicants are selected for a personal interview. The second step is the interview itself. There's a one-on-one interview with an EMBO member or a young investigator. And these interviewers produce a report, then is evaluated in the 3rd step, in the main round, together with the full application by the committee meeting, by the fellowship committee, which is formed by EMBO members, all the highly renowned scientists. And they meet at the end of this evaluation process to make the final awards. The success rate is about 15%, which means that basically half of the people that are interviewed get the fellowship. Next slide, please. Regarding EMBO short-term fellowships, the scope of these fellowships is completely different. These fellowships are awards that need to benefit the laboratories involved, particularly the home laboratory. And basically what we do with these fellowships is send somebody from one laboratory to another to learn a technique or to use a model system or a piece of equipment that is not available in the home laboratory. And the idea is that this person goes back to the home laboratory and transfers the knowledge that they have learned during this experience. Secondarily to these, we also look for the establishment of new scientific collaborations. The idea is to see these fellowships as a networking opportunity, so you get to know new scientists and not as a means to go to the laboratory with which you have collaborated for the last 20 years, and there's nothing else to learn. What we cover with this fellowship is basically the travel costs, and then we provide a daily rate for subsistence, basically for you to live in the country that you're visiting, and that's based on the country where you're going. We cover from 1 week to 3 months, although the visit can be slightly longer, up to 6 months, if you get external funding. And after that, you have to go back to your home laboratory for an additional 6 months. Next slide, please. So in this case, there's no age or career stage restrictions. So you can apply even if you're a group leader or if you're a PhD, it doesn't matter. The only thing we ask for is that you have some experience in the laboratory. Normally, we ask for at least 1 year of research experience as a PhD or equivalent. For example, you could be a medical doctor working on a project and you're not officially doing a PhD, but you have experience in that. International mobility is required as usual in EMBO programs. In this case, only exchanges between EMBC countries and associate member countries are allowed. So you can move to European countries in essence, and then between India, Singapore, Taiwan, and Chile. Applications to or from non-EMBC countries will not be considered. Occasionally, we consider applications to non-EMBC countries like the US or Canada, countries like that. Only if it's absolutely justified. There's no other way of doing what you want to do in an EMBC or associate member country. In this case, there's no application deadlines, and the evaluation is an ongoing process. Normally, within 2 months of application, you will have a decision. Next slide, please. So just to reiterate, these fellowships have the main purpose is to visit another laboratory in another country to take advantage of a model system, infrastructure, or a technique that it doesn't exist in your home laboratory. So you can bring back the expertise gained to your home laboratory. The idea is that this is not a consultation. You don't go there to learn how to use a machine, but you have a project in your home laboratory that would benefit from the visit, so you will develop scientifically, not just your portfolio of techniques. And we favor new collaborations. The fellowship is a networking opportunity, and we want you to meet people that you haven't collaborated with before. Again, the intended duration of visits is basically 3 months, but you can extend it up to 6 months if you have additional funding. Next slide, please. So, based on these, the evaluation is obviously based on the benefit for home laboratory. So that's the most important thing we analyze when evaluating this fellowship. But of course, the project has to be feasible and it has to be scientifically sound. And there has to be a good justification for the proposed host laboratory, because you go there to learn something you cannot do by yourself. So you have to go to the right laboratory to do that. The evaluation is done by EMBO Press editors here in-house, and final decisions are made by me, by the head of the fellowship program. Next slide, please. Finally, I want to give you some tips for a successful application. This doesn't apply just to EMBO Fellowships. This applies in general to any fellowship, and something that you have to take into consideration. The first thing you need to know is that a successful application starts well before you apply. And it starts first, and this is the most important thing I can tell you, by deciding what you want to do in your life. You need to decide what line of research you would like to pursue in your future career. That's the most important thing. Then, once you have done that, then you have to identify where you want to do that. You should try to identify one or several top laboratories in the world that are working in this field of interest. And then contact these people. So you can express your interest, you can propose to them what you want to do, and ask them if they want to host you in their lab. You can do that. Basically, there are two means of doing that. One is in person, because you meet them at a scientific conference, or they go give a talk near your home, or you have common colleagues. But also you can do it just by writing to them, which is the most common way of doing these. If you do these, you should make sure that you send them a personalized letter, that you really show interest in their laboratory, that you know why you want to go to that laboratory, and you explain that to them. Ideally, you will also present them with a project that you would like to develop, but this is not absolutely necessary. Next slide. So we haven't started the application yet. Remember that. Now you can start, once you have a host laboratory and a project that you want to develop, then you should start exploring your funding options. Not before these, only when you know what you want to do. And that's because not all funders may provide the awards for your specific topic or for your specific situation. So find about the mission and scope of your potential funders. For example, EMBO will fund projects in life sciences, but also EMBO funds projects with a fundamental biology inclination. So we're trying to fund, we won't find applications that are just devoted to a new design of an applied device or something like that. So you have to read the guidelines and the mission and scope of your funder before you apply. And that's where in my last point here, read all available information before you apply. That includes not only the online information, also the guidelines and the application forms. And if after reading all this information, there's things that are still unclear to you, before you apply and spend a lot of time applying to an application that you will be ineligible to, make sure that you contact the funder and get the information correctly. Make sure that you're eligible before you apply. That's important. Otherwise, you will spend a long time and a lot of effort in applying to something that you're not eligible to. Next slide, please. This is also very important. You have to be honest with yourself. Don't apply to everything. You might have lots of potential fellowships to apply to, but each application, if it's done properly, takes a lot of time and effort. So apply only to fellowships in which you have the highest chances to get and improve them to the maximum. You should To do that, in order to do that, you should also find out about the evaluation process. See who's going to read your application and try to tailor to that particular audience, and follow the instructions provided. That's very important. That's why you should read all the documents pertaining to the applications you want to provide. Next slide, please. So now when you are writing already, you are applying, make sure that you write the application yourself. It is fine to ask for help, but avoid copy-pasting from a proposal. That's usually very easy to detect for people with experience in evaluating fellowships, and doesn't give a very good image of yourself. It's better that you write it, even if your English is not that good or you make mistakes, than if it's very clear that you haven't written the application. Be clear and avoid jargon. Keep in mind that not everybody that is going to read your application normally are experts in your topic. So they might not understand all the details if you just go into all the details and forget to explain the wider idea. Be specific, don't be vague, don't just write about the potential social implications of your fellowship and things like that. Just focus on the science. At least that's for EMBO Fellowships, that's very important, because the space allotted to the explanation of your project is not that big. Be ambitious, but take into consideration that you don't have an infinite time to do your project, and the equipment also might be limited in the laboratory where you're going. And it's key to properly introduce your project. Again, remember that not everybody is an expert in what you're doing. So it's important to explain to everybody, what is the issue? What do we know about that issue? Why is it important to know more? And what will you add to our knowledge with your proposed research? That's very important. That's just 4 paragraphs. You don't need more, 3 or 4 lines each. And that's a perfect introduction to your project. Next slide, please. So once you think you have finished, you haven't. So the first thing you should do is ask successful colleagues for their applications. If you know any, this will probably, when you read them, will give you hints to improve yours, like a way of explaining yourself or organizing it. And also ask them, not necessarily successful colleagues for this particular fellowship, but ask colleagues with more experience than you for feedback. Ideally, you will ask 2 people, 1 expert on the topic, so they can know if you are factually correct, and 1 person that works in an unrelated field, but has, of course, is a biologist in our case, for example. So they have a general knowledge of the field. They can tell you if your application can be understood by someone that is not an absolute expert. You also have to make sure, and this is very important, that you choose the right referees to provide reference letters. And the right referee is not the most famous person in your institute, is someone that knows you very well. Normally your host supervisor or someone you have worked very closely with, because those people can really give very specific, very illustrative reference letter, and not just a general one, very vague. This is important, don't leave submission to the last minute. Normally when you apply, when you're a PhD student, you're applying for a postdoctoral fellowship, for example. At the same time, you're doing many other things. You're writing your thesis, you're finishing your experiments, you're looking for a new place to live, many things at the same time. If you leave this to the last minute, then you may not have time to do a proper application, and that will reduce your chances of getting it. Next slide. With that, I would like to finish, and thank you for your attention. Here, there's some contact information where you will get more information, and not only for fellowships. As you can see, you can get also information from Global or the G program. Please contact us if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Before we move further, we'll again launch an audience poll to get some of your responses. So I'll share the results of the poll, and we asked you, based on this webinar, I'm planning to apply for an EMBO Fellowships in the next 3 years, and 88% of you say yes, 12% maybe. That's great. Thank you for your response. And I would be interested in receiving future resources and participating in upcoming webinars and workshops related to international research training and mobility awareness. And 94% of you admit yes, and 6% maybe. Thank you for your responses. And we will move on to take some questions. First, from the Q&A box. Shantala will be walking us through these questions from the Q&A box. after which we'll take some live questions as well. I see some of you raising your hands. Let's take some questions from Shantala, and then you'll get an opportunity to talk as well. Shantala?
Thank you, David, and thank you, Lakshmi. It's really wonderful to see that so many of you are interested in this larger program as well as applying to EMBO fellowships in the near future. So a few of the questions in the question box was, how can I get access to these future resources? Will this webinar be available to watch at a later time when I'm crafting my application? So the answer to that is this webinar is going to be hosted on the India Bioscience YouTube channel. So whenever you need it at a later date, feel free to come back and visit it. And as for receiving notifications about our future resources, one is you can keep an eye out for what we post on the India Bioscience webpage, or you can subscribe to our newsletter and then we spread information about our upcoming activities this week. So these are the ways you can keep in touch with us for now. So starting with a common theme of questions that was that a few people had is, how do you judge an applicant's scientific achievements? And to kind of tag on to that question, Shinjini asked, is it required for the publication to be a first author publication? When you mentioned that you need one peer-reviewed paper, should it be a first author publication?
I guess that the question is for me. So yes, there needs to be a first author publication, which just require one. But you can list all the publications that you have in the application process, including preprints that haven't been accepted in a peer review journal yet. Regarding the judgment of the scientific achievement, it's not just about the publications. So the publications are obviously a big part of it because they show productivity and show a finished work. But it's not just about the publication. We also take into consideration, or the committee takes into consideration, the lab where the person is coming from. If you come from a very good lab that has very high level publications and is very productive, you are expected to have more productivity than if you come from a laboratory that is much smaller. And that's taken into consideration. Also the country where you come from. Some countries are richer and have more resources in science. So all these things are taken into consideration, not just measurement of how many papers in which impact factor. That's not what the committee does. And also, of course, we take into consideration the description you do of your PhD achievements and things like that. Although obviously publication record is the most important part.
Thank you.
You also have the opportunity to describe research that hasn't been published yet.
Yeah.
So,
So another set of questions was related to what are the qualifications at the educational level. So in this kind of bag, the questions are, can I apply for the fellowship if I've submitted my thesis, my thesis but not yet defended it? Could I apply for the fellowships if I am a medical student? And so generally in line with this, could you give us a kind of advice on what is a timeline you would advise students to keep in mind when applying for these fellowships? Should they start late in their PhD, early in their postdoc? What would you recommend?
So you can apply before you submit your thesis, before you're a PhD. But by the time you start, you have to have your PhD. So you cannot apply very early in your PhD because then by the time, if you're awarded, you won't be able to start because you still don't have your PhD. So we normally recommend people in the last year, when they already know more or less when they're going to defend, they can already start. Of course, if you know that within 6 months you will get a new paper published, then it will be probably worth waiting for that. That's up to you, but you can apply before. That's definitely the case. You should try to make sure that within the time that you are eligible, you can apply twice. That's the maximum you can apply. So you can apply once and then you can reapply with the same or a different project or a different host lab. That doesn't matter. But you have to make sure that if you apply, for example, for the first time when you are just almost 2 years after your PhD, you won't have time to reapply then afterwards. So you should try to keep that in mind, the time window in which you will be eligible. but definitely you can apply before your PhD. And regarding medical students, they can apply. Whether you are, if you're in an MD PhD program, then the PhD rules will apply. If you're just an MD, then you need to have significant experience as a researcher. That's something we need to judge on a case-by-case basis, but in principle, we expect that you have a lot of experience as a researcher at the level of a PhD in order to apply. You don't need to be in an MD PhD program, but you need to have experience as a researcher.
So another question comes in from Indra Singh, and she says, I have a career break for family reasons. Is there any support for female candidates? And do you take into account this gap if someone has taken a gap for family reasons? Can that 2-year period be adjusted against that? Do you make any exceptions?
As I explained, yes, you can for parental leave reasons, or we have also made exceptions for people. For example, in many countries, it's very typical that in case of elderly parents, women are the ones taking the burden of taking care of them. We have made exceptions in those cases too. And also for in other countries, mandatory military service is still in place, or you could have a severe illness and you have been in the hospital for many months that have really altered your career path. In those cases, we normally extend this period of 2 years, as long as this parental break or this break has happened during these 2 years, we can extend them for the time that you have spent taking care of somebody or having your kid or any of the other cases that I explained. But we are flexible with that, and anyone interested in applying for these exceptions should contact us with this.
So maybe we can take a question from those who have raised their hands, Lakshmi, and I'll just continue screening the Q&A box.
Okay, some of you have raised your hands, so I'll unmute the first come first. And when you see me unmute you, you'll say your host and hostess unmuted you, so and you can unmute your microphones and talk. Sorry about that. Yeah, Shivaranjani, you can ask your questions if you wish to. Unmute yourself and ask your questions.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Shivaranjani.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Dr. Ravikiran Ombol is there? Is he there right now?
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Dr. Shivaranjani.
okay. So we're going to take a question from Gaurav Pandey. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello.
Gaurav?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question like, is it essential to have a mall bio research background to be eligible for an MBO postdoctoral fellowship?
Is it required to have a molecular biology background?
Sorry?
Is it essential to have a mall bio research background to be eligible to be an EMBO postdoctoral fellow?
No, your background is actually irrelevant. So the only thing important for eligibility is the project that you want to develop. So if you're a physicist, for example, but you want to develop a project in biology that will apply your knowledge as a physicist, that's perfectly fine. We don't need you to be a biologist in order to apply. What we need is that the project you want to develop is within the scope of EMBO, which is essentially life sciences at large.
Shall we take one more question, Shantala?
Yeah, so one of the questions that came in is, I find that most of the EMBO postdocs have publications in very high impact journals, such as Nature, Cell, and Science. How much of an impact does this have on the selection? So I think maybe, go ahead.
It is true that there are EMBO fellows that have very high level publications, but not everybody have that. So around 10%, I did a small survey of a couple of years looking at who got the fellowship in terms of publications, and around 10% of the fellows that the fellowship published just one paper. So they just meet the requirement of having one paper as a first author in a peer review journal. Of course, there are also people that have 10 papers. And the more papers in more quality journals you have, the easier it's going to be for you to get the fellowship as a general rule. But it is not necessary. We have people with just one paper and not in one of those fancy journals that got the fellowship. And that's because what I explained before, it's not the only thing they look at. As Gavin said, they look also at all the unpublished work that you have done. You get to explain your main achievements as a scientist. And they also look at your publications in the context of where you are. And obviously, if you were at MIT and Harvard, your chances of getting into these fancy journals is probably higher than if you work in a small university in India. That's clear. But we take that into consideration in the evaluation process. You're not evaluated just at face value compared to the next candidate. We take all these.
So the final question from the Q&A box is from Jitesh, and he says that if I have done my PhD abroad, could I apply to an EMBO fellowship to come and do my postdoc in India?
Yes, there's no problem. If you can, if you have done, you left already India yesterday your PhD, and then you want to come back, you meet all the requirements, which is moving to a different country where you are working, moving away from your PhD director, etc., etc. So if you meet all other requirements, that's perfectly fine.
So you could come from the United States, having done your PhD in the United States,
yeah,
into India and do your PhD postdoc there. Sorry, but you know, when you apply, you can only have been there for half a year maximum.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. There's other requirements that you still have to be within 2 years after your PhD, etc. All the same requirements apply. In this case, your nationality is not important for this. It's just that you're moving countries.
So I think that's it from the Q&A box. In case any of your questions have not been answered, we will try to find a way of uploading these answers in the resource section for this webinar. Maybe we'll take one final question from someone who's raised their hand, Lakshmi, because we're already running a bit behind schedule.
Sure. So I see Saborni Maiti raising your hand. Please unmute yourself and ask your question, Saborni.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I have one actually technical question that I have done my PhD from India. So what should be the date you considered as a PhD award? I mean, is it the final defense viva or the final award ceremony?
It's the day in which you officially can call yourself a PhD. So whatever it says in an official document that says you got awarded the PhD on this date, that's the date we want. It doesn't matter when you do. I know in some countries you do your PhD exam sometimes many months before you are actually awarded, but it's the actual award date that counts. Because any other way of doing this would be too complex because every country has a different way of doing this. So what we decided that counts is the day in which you can officially call yourself a PhD holder.
Okay.
Thank you, Bettina. Thank you, David. Thank you, Gerlind. So we're going to end the question and answer session now. But as I mentioned, this is an ongoing resource that we're developing. So I'm going to go through the question and answer box because there are a lot of questions, and I'm going to pick out some common themes. And maybe we can create a frequently asked question document and put that along with this webinar video when we upload it. So if your question hasn't been answered, do not worry. We will try to get back to you with an answer on it. And as I mentioned, that this is a kind of resource that we are building. So it's possible that if your question was not answered here, it might be answered in an informational article, a subsequent podcast, or in some other resource that we will be sharing. So I think with that, we're going to end the webinar.
All right, thank you, Shantala. Thank you, everybody, the EMBO team, and thank you, audience, for staying on and listening. So until next time, for another wonderful webinar and informational broadcast session, goodbye from us and Happy New Year. Bye.
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 Bye.